adaptive music teaching, you guys kind of already got your crash course and general sped stuff last week. Dr. Robeson is going to be giving you more of like in-depth actual music, technology, and different little trinkets and gadgets that are going to help with your teaching, as well as a couple of different techniques and things like that. For this first part of class, I really wanted you guys to be the main drivers behind us. I know we've been trying to have a couple of classes like this, but I really want you guys to be the main driving force here. So we're going to do a bunch of different scenarios, and I want to see where your minds as little groups and individuals lead us into some of this stuff. So let's go ahead and just get started. So obviously, like I said, we explored some general sped practices last week. Going to some music specific stuff. So our first scenario here, you have a student with autism spectrum disorder who really, really wants to play the piano, like really wants to play the piano. And you teach middle school band, like 7th, 8th grade. The method books that you're using, and kind of pick and choose, I'm thinking essential elements because this is a real life scenario that happened to me. You don't have piano books for essential elements for beginning band. They just don't exist. They have piano books, but they don't go along with the band stuff. They're not the same key. So you decide, percussion that has keyboards-ish, kind of the same way. Maybe we can start him on percussion, and by the time we start moving into more advanced music, he can play some piano. You have an electric keyboard that he might be able to take home. And the second you suggest that, he throws himself on the ground, he throws everything else on the ground, he starts screaming and crying and having a meltdown. What are we going to do? Go ahead and turn into your little table groups here and start discussing. I'll give you about 5 minutes. Feel free to ask questions if you have them. Like, if you're trying to figure out the demographic of this kid, feel free to just ask.
Does this kid have piano experience?
Not in the slightest.
Is there an intervention specialist?
Sorry?
Is there an intervention specialist there?
There is usually one, but not today. And like I said, this is exactly what happened because usually there was one. Not this day.
I don't have access to the
No idea.
Trying to find out this and let them emotions run through and then
I'm more thinking about the long, because obviously you're gonna calm down. Because
if you have a digital keyboard
And feel free to write some of these ideas down because they're not
put
stupid
like
ideas.
a xylophone or vibraphone sound font on it. So then they can play percussion. And they can start getting acquainted with
And I'm hearing this group over here start to think about long term because obviously in the short term we just calm them down. What are we gonna do long term? Are you thinking about that?
I think that's because the problem is there's no piano. That's the whole issue. It's not anything with this.
And long term? Beyond just that initial.
possible lessons for like
And so what if the aide is like, oh, well I have another student I'm assigned to, I can help with general course. And so what are some of your backup plans that you're going to present? Because what if the parents like said, well, I don't know how to band teacher, you're the band teacher.
you can incorporate piano because there's a lot.
But how would you figure out? That's that critical thinking part. Before you have a parent yelling at you saying like, well, why aren't you treating my kid the same as the other?
I'm thinking we. I don't see that one.
It's like the discussion's kind of dying down.
Those two. Yeah. Jessica Gaylor.
We're going to go ahead and bring him back to the center. Let's start hearing some ideas. Chastity! that's, one possibility is taking some extra time out of your schedule, doing some private lessons. You could make a little bit of extra money on the side if that's something that you and the student is interested in. If the student maybe doesn't have time because of family obligations or other extracurriculars or the way that they travel to and from school, maybe the family can't afford lessons. What are some other options, Jesse?
I said like arranging it for piano so that it doesn't have like the stereo label of percussion.
Okay.
Like something that they already know.
Okay. Yeah, and again, long term, that could be a good idea. You could use a flute book and a trombone book or something like that. Not a bad plan. Other ideas, Caleb?
Say if they're just starting on piano, you could probably give them like a mallet percussion book, and then it could be a situation where over time you can convince the student to start to switch over to percussion from a piano. It just might not be something they're open to right off the bat before they see cool stuff percussion can do.
And again, long term, like these are not bad ideas. What are some things in the short term? What are you gonna do with this kid having a meltdown right now? With 30 other students in the classroom and your aide is nowhere to be seen. He's screaming and throwing stuff. There is no learning happening. What are you doing? Do you want a few more minutes to discuss that?
If you have immediate access to a keyboard, just
What if that
get him to it.
What if that doesn't help him? He refuses to go to it. He's so in his own head about it right now. He doesn't want to listen to the external part of that. Like the logical brain is shut off. Right now we're in the emotional brain.
Maybe call for a teacher.
We could call for another teacher to help. If you have someone down the hall, you can call for admin, something like that. That's really becoming disruptive, things like that. That's not a bad plan. Call for the counselor maybe. What are some other ideas? What can you yourself do?
Usually, I had several like students with like autism when I was in elementary. And when things like this were happening, it was like the teacher just kind of like, and then again there was an intervention specialist, but it was really like everyone kind of like helping you figure your part on your own. And just for quick instruction. And if like the intervention specialist wasn't there, then it was just like, all right, how about you come up with whatever, and then when I get back, we can like handle it. So then, like we all just kind of like quietly started to like figure out if we wanted to like do a dog cruise or whatever.
And so, I really like what you were saying about giving the other students something to do. So that, I think, should be priority number one before anything else. You're telling your students, hey, practice measure 4 through 8 and number 6 on the book. It's probably your first or second day doing this stuff after you've gone over expectations. They can handle that kind of instruction, even if they're terrible at it, it still keeps their hands from being idle. I see you raising your hand. Go ahead.
Quick question though, with having that happen, like adding the movies to the chaos that's happening with that, an opportunity to make things worse.
It can be, and that's something that you have to be really sensitive to. Thank you for asking it. So we have to be really sensitive to the fact that this student may, and this student did, may have some like auditory sensitivities, and so adding that extra noise to it may not help. Maybe a better option is, hey, write in your notes for number 6 and 7, things like that. And then with the student themselves, and let me go ahead and we'll just go on to the next little slide here. So let's go ahead and make a connection with that student. If this student is just not having it, you have to get them out of their emotional brain and back into the brain that will hear a little bit of louder. And so something that we can do that, it's kind of with other students too. You'll get a little bit of this training as you continue through your education, a little bit even in your right before school starts, sort of early teacher training, is some of that just de-escalation techniques. So what are some de-escalation techniques? What can we do to de-escalate things? You know what I mean when I say de-escalation? Can someone tell me what that might mean? De-escalation. Christian.
It's just kind of the process of trying to use techniques to calm everything that's going on. You're not trying to add fuel to the fire, you're trying to douse it.
Yeah, and specifically, what are we trying to calm down? Is it the classroom environment or is it the student? Maybe a little bit of both. this may have derailed, and especially if you have other students who are on IEPs or other learning plans, it may have derailed all of the above. And so you may have to bring everything back to center. There's something you brought up that I was going to talk more on, but I'm going to move forward because I've got it. As far as our actual de-escalation of this student goes, let's, again, brainstorm some techniques. If you need a second to talk to each other, you can. But what are we going to do if this student is crying, refuses to hear any logical things? What can we do to help this student? And if you don't know, like, that's totally fine. That's what we're here for, to teach. I eat off the silence.
Maybe explain that piano is percussion.
And again, this is in our rational brain. This is logical. Saying that piano is percussion might help a neurotypical student. That really might be like, hey, piano is percussion. It's very similar. That's probably the conversation that you have as you're introducing, hey, what a great idea. You know, let's put you on percussion right now because I have the book for that. But it's going to be so similar to piano. You'll learn it, and then by the next time we're learning songs out of the book, you'll be like a piano expert. That's probably what you're doing towards the beginning. As far as de-escalation goes, oh, do you have an idea real quick?
You could, depending on this, like, what the need for the student, you can, like, have, like, some form of, like, some variation of, like, a fidget toy, so that it's more, like, aesthetic feeling, and that brings them back in.
Absolutely.
Instead of, like, because some kids may, like, if you, like, try to, like, verbally calm them down, that just makes probably make it worse.
Yeah. And so, can I have a brave volunteer?
See what happens.
Would you grab a chair and just come out here? No, it's okay. And so I just want to kind of do a little bit of demonstration. So one of the things that a lot of students, not all students, every student's need, but that a lot of students with ASD can benefit from is parallelism or mirroring. Body doubling is one of the big buzzwords. And so if I'm across from you as you are having a meltdown, and you don't need to like act that out or anything, but having a meltdown, and I look across from you and I start telling you things, that's not, that puts more pressure and you go even further into your emotional brain. Go ahead and over there. If I come over and I kind of sit down next to you and we're like respectful distance, now we're facing the same direction, now it's kind of like we're doing the same thing. If I kind of mirror some of your body language, then this can set your brain a little bit more at ease already before we even have a word share. Then, kind of like you were saying, with something to do with our hands, I will sometimes grab something with my hands and give the student something, or just set it next to them. And so I'm just like kind of playing with something, doing things as I'm talking. Again, it sets them out of their emotional brain and into their rational brain, kind of takes their guards down. And so you can go back. 3 claps. And so, sorry, you missed it. And beyond that, what are some of the actual words that we might use in this situation? If you don't have ideas, just say, I don't have ideas.
Is it like rational to just say like we're gonna breathe together?
Yes.
Deep breaths?
Absolutely. So that's a huge de-escalation thing. That's for everybody. So if you just say, hey, and something you can also do is just breathe already yourself. Just, all right, I'm going to take some deep breaths. You're welcome to do them with me. And just like having that, again, a psychosomatic versus not psychosomatic. What is the word I'm looking for? A subconscious response is that if you hear someone take a deep breath, it's like yawning. You kind of also want to take a deep breath. So these students take a deep breath, take a couple more, and they start calming themselves down a little bit. If that's still not working, you can start using some actual words with them and hey, like this behavior is not appropriate. Like that's something right here. And again, like there's a rational aspect to that, but at this age especially, that's become a really prevalent thing in the culture of special education. Is tell them what's appropriate and not appropriate for the situation. Sometimes you can use the words expected or unexpected, which we know unexpected doesn't really mean that, but what's expected of you in one scenario or one location versus another. And if you're like, hey, we're in 7th grade, this is not appropriate behavior. Let's get ourselves back together may not try to say, hey, here's your percussion book, here's your flute book, go sit by the piano. That was a mistake that I made, was to, after the student had cooled himself down and came back to the class, then I said, here's a flute book, because again, I was thinking, all right, yeah, awesome, great, now we're back together, now we can start this again. So I handed a flute book, I'm like, here you go, here's a flute book, go ahead and do the piano. And that was a travesty, and set him right back off, and we had to do the whole thing all over again. And so just leaving it, letting it happen the next time that you come back to it, and being like, all right, you know, this student may not be doing very much today. You might hand them a book, you might hand them an instrument, you might be like, hey, you know what, go ahead and just go journal in the back, be like, tell me what you might think are some other options for instruments. You don't have to decide on anything, I'm not going to push anything on you. Just think about some other options for instruments you might want to try. And so when they come back the next day and say, hey, you know, so good to, and that's my big thing that I always like to do with kids who've had something or another happen. Hey, it was so good to see you. Let's do some music. What are some instruments you might have thought about? And this particular student, this may not always be the case, this particular student said, you know what? I want to try the saxophone. This was terrible because the saxophone has a lot of buzziness that happens right on your mouth. Sensory overload, hated it, did not work out. You know what it ended up working out? Percussion. Which, after about a week and a half of trying different things and letting him just experience that, he was like, you know what? I do want to try percussion. I was like, well, hey, I got the perfect thing for you. And I pulled out an instrument that no one else was playing in that class. And I had like 11 percussions. It was crazy. So I pulled out like a marching like it was just one little tenor drum. And it was just a little tiny little thing. I was like, hey, you know what? Here's this is your drum. He's like, this is my drum? This is your drum. And this kid he loved it. And then sensory issues, like auditory wise, he never had again. He would just beat the ever-living tar out of that drum. And then, like seriously, he loved that thing. And then I would add some other responsibilities to him as the semester and as the year went on. I would say, hey, would you be willing to try, again, giving him a little bit of agency, would you be willing to try, you know, maybe using the cymbal? He loved the suspended cymbal too. And so there were some things that didn't work. He hated the triangle, did not like it, it was too high pitched. There were other things that he didn't like, things that he did like. So again, it's about building that connection, being like, hey, what works for this student? What are these students' needs? Glancing at the IEP and being like, oh, he hates when things touch his mouth. Should have tipped me off to be like, maybe saxophone won't work. Read the document. Let's try another scenario. So a student of yours is prone to violent outbursts, as well as threatening herself and others with harm or death. Said me too. Stop that. Usually she keeps herself pretty well under control, but on acquired invitational trips like a festival is an audition. She starts making comments about throwing herself and another student off of the third floor balcony. Take about 5 minutes. And think not just about the situation. Think also about paperwork. Yes.
Is this like an uncontrollable thing, or is it like she genuinely believes? I don't know.
Genuinely believes what?
Like,
Oh,
she's
is it
going
like
hard on it.
Tourette's where they're just saying that, or is it something where
Yeah,
they have
something
potential
like
behind it?
that.
It's more where she actually has the potential behind it, and she's physically
Okay,
threatening
she
by
does
it.
have intent.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not just like, oh, okay, sorry.
Did the other student do anything to provoke? Did the other student that is being threatened?
By the time you get there, you're not entirely sure, because you've been, getting students all over the place. By the time you hear the students yelling on the balcony, you're like, oh gosh, something's happening.
Wants to run the balcony.
And you're also like within the distance that you can get there safely. Like it's not like you're there on the third floor balcony and you're in the parking lot. Like this is something where you are able to take control of the situation if you find the tools. Hearing some talking from the middle group, a little bit of muttering from that group. Hearing nothing from this group. Make sure we're all like a part of the conversation.
Call the parents so they can talk.
From there,
The current knowledge should
I would wait. You know, I guess maybe slowly approach, and I'm just like absolutely run up on them. And like things of course seem like something's better happen then you would like quickly intervene, but I wouldn't like go crazy and
when this is all said and done,
even if anything, if like they're not, I don't know, because they gotta know if the current student is Christian, or that they have like freedom to have the student being threatened, just leave and go outside and work. Or go to school. Just see that website and just nose out and then talk to them.
Alright, we're gonna cut the discussion a little short just for time's sake. Finish your thought and then bring it back in.
I'm referring to the student that's been. I can see
Ideas. Kevin.
I think the first step is to create a physical barrier between the faculty and them, so whether that's yourself or getting them off the balcony and just keep it away.
Okay. Not a bad idea.
From there, I like call admin first, probably with the students, and then
So remember that you're at another school.
oh, this is good.
You're at another school. But that's, if this was at your school, absolutely. Yeah. And still, down the road, admin may need to be called.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not necessarily, because if you have your admin cell phone,
Also.
you're still on a school sanctioned event. So I've had situations where I've been at a football game at our rival school and somebody acted up. In that moment, you have to take over the situation and handle it for the admin, but then you notify it immediately.
That's
So I would text them and go,
Okay.
this is the
Yes.
problem,
Yeah.
and they'd say, Monday, I'll step in. Until then, you've got to.
Exactly. That's exactly correct. Maybe in the moment, handle the situation first, but then admin does need to know about this.
We kind of talked about being calm and not trying to do anything like rash or like very like quick. I mean, of course, if you need to like jump at the spring to action, because it's like really about to happen, then do it. But like, don't make anyone get nervous. Definitely like separate the two.
They don't talk about assessing if this is an emergency that requires 911. That is a resounding no. If this is a life or death situation where not only you see the student yelling and threatening, but this student is trying to get the student over this balcony, like this is either getting the resource officer or 911 or somebody right now, and this may not be something that you are doing as you're trying to mitigate the situation. This might be you telling another chaperone, or you telling another teacher, or even you telling a student, hey, Rachel, call 911 as you're running up the balcony or running wherever you're going.
As it is with contacting admin, would it be the same that if you're in another school, you should absolutely contact the resource officer if they're present? Or should that be only in high intensity
If this is a situation where it looks like there is going to be harm or death, then call 911 instantly is what I would say. Or well, even you can say, you go call 911, you go run to the office and get the SRO.
Okay.
Like, and really dug. It's kind of like the CPR where you say, hey, you call 911, and then you start doing compression. This is where you're going to have people getting the other responses. And then what are you doing yourself to mitigate the situation? Let's say maybe it's not one where it's actually, okay, these students are about to go over the balcony, we're worried about their death. It's this student, within sight of the balcony, but screaming at this other student.
Your demographics. Know what kind of school you're in. If you have an SRO, you probably are in a demographic that is not always super appealing, or it's probably usually more diverse, which is not is a gross overgeneralization. But be careful that you don't involve them unless it is those dire situations, because a student, you may think that you're benefiting them, but harm by bringing that aspect.
So what are, now that we've determined it's not an emergency, there's not actual life or death at this moment, what are we doing to neutralize the situation, de-escalate?
Find a way to like separate the two, just so that it de-escalates the problem and as well as gets them away from potential escalation.
And I will say, yes, but there's an asterisk right there. And this is sort of kind of going away, but what I have heard, what I've been informed, is that between male, like masculine presenting students, you will want to get between them. With feminine presenting students, you will not, because they will go through you. And so that is something to, and I don't know exactly statistically if there's a lot of research to support that, but that's what I was told in my pre-school year training, is to just let that happen and get someone else if they're actually fighting. If it is a matter where they're just yelling at each other, one student's yelling at the other, if the student isn't yelling back, I would say that, yeah, have them go somewhere, really like protect that student from being pursued by the other one, which is sad to say, but not a bad plan. Other ideas?
You could de-escalate it past, one student just berating the other student, maybe try to monitor getting the two students back together, so they can talk it out and eliminate the situation.
Okay, not a bad idea. If the student after the student that she's yelling at goes away, if the student is still pushing for her jumping off the balcony, then what are we looking at?
Or you can contact parents.
Say like, hey, I'm gonna get up. I'm gonna go ahead and just go over to this other one. So, yeah, like I said, safety first. Don't take chances. If it looks at all like there's gonna be harm or death, act right then. Like, don't be like, well, maybe they're not gonna throw each other off the balcony. But like, if it looks like it, act. And then I talk about the 911 stuff. If you have another chaperone, which ideally you do, if you have a bunch of kids on a choir trip, you can have that adult chaperone now be the student's buddy, and they're not getting out of that chaperone site for the rest of the trip. You can have them be not out of that, chaperone site until the parents come to pick them up, which is what you were saying. Call the parents. Make sure admin knows about this, things like that. We're gonna keep moving forward just so we can stick to time because we're starting to run a little short on it. But building relationships and setting and maintaining expectations is huge to student success in crisis and in daily practice. And so, like I said, I stuck to a very, very, not rigid, but a very specific schedule every single week and every single day. We would always start with the same things every day. We would always have the same structure of our week where we'd have, like I said here, Monday we did full rehearsal, Tuesdays we did half sectionals, half full rehearsal, Wednesdays we did full rehearsal again, I think, yeah. And then Thursdays we did listening journal and then rehearsal. And so students, whether they're neurodivergent or not, tend to be like, okay, you know what? I know exactly what to expect every day, every week. This class is safe. And so that's just a huge thing for all of our students. So let's talk about some physical impairments, and we'll have just enough time to make this happen. Let's do each of these four in each group. So, and this is adjusting for physical impairment. So a student student is extremely double jointed and cannot hold their cello, so with this hand, and they cannot hold their bow correctly. Their fingers bend inward or they walk inward like this. We're trying to figure out how to make these things happen. A student is blind and cannot see solfege from the front of the room. A student is missing 2 fingers on right hand and is set on playing the tuba and is actually a pretty good musician. A student in your 5th grade music class cannot tolerate loud noises due to their hearing impairments / so like things like cochlear implants or hearing aids, or behavioral disorder like autism spectrum disorder, where we have these sensory auditory impairments. And this also, again, just another buzzword for you. This would be an example of something that is doubly exceptional. So students with both autism and hearing problems, things like that. And this is something where we're going to do no budget. You don't get to go buy anything. You just have to use what you might be able to find around your room, around another teacher in the school, around the office, things like that. Go ahead and take, I'm only going to give you 7 minutes.
And think of a standard, like, band office.
Yeah, exactly.
In terms of items.
Not a band room that has like, oh, well, we have a luthier hiding in the shed or something like that, who can make a special bow adapted to it. No, but like, oh yeah, we have like some random springs and stuff. Rubber bands. Yeah. Go ahead. You got 6 minutes and 30 seconds.
Oh, yeah. Especially like once they lose
Yeah, there's that one. I would either, there's also cases in the front of it, so I would make it so that I have that in the current order or however, I can't see us a little bit, then I would probably rely on just saying, yeah, things, or if you're doing a hand sign, you can ask them permission to like move their hands so they know. No, I don't know because I haven't been progressive. I got no
what fingers do you missing? Is it the thumb and the, is it the ring and these? Because I feel like anything you do.
I know.
Yeah.
Depends on who you have access to. If you want high school, we have you can reach out to someone.
What fingers is this?
Let's do 1, 2, and the thumb is the ones that they have. 1, 2, and thumb.
Okay, so they don't have.
So alternate finger
Something they
names.
do with blind people when they're signing.
Depending on like
How, I don't sign.
How old and how large is the student that wants to take it?
They have
Sorry.
How old and
Some have
how
three.
large is the student that
You
wants to
can
take
do,
it?
that would make it.
Let's put them in high school. So 15, 16, and probably about my height.
Another question, because I have real world experience with this.
Okay.
Fingers that are missing, which ones?
We told you 1, 2, and thumb.
They have
They
those.
have. So they're missing.
Gotcha.
you can do a scan and have them.
I was gonna say, you could also just use a stick and use your thumb.
Upright piston valves.
Three valves.
So there's this one.
Wouldn't be the latest thing to do. So that way they can travel. Or.
Also, there's some
Okay.
small ones that like
5th grade student who can't follow the values.
If I was to shoot like this, your points that they might be like ones, yeah. Were they all in the sky?
You have 3.5 minutes.
Most things you would just have those, the little ones, which can make you do. You can put a lot of things in.
You can unsolder some of the retype. We might as well just around.
Smith, I don't shed.
You, I can pull up.
Yeah, you are. So my uncle.
They play, they pull their, if there's another director, that's all it is.
Yeah, just like, yeah, how to stick your knowledge.
Is everybody on to the second half of the questions? Are you guys done? How close y'all to being done? Done? Alright, let's go ahead and cut it for time. Alright, let's get started. First one. Yeah.
From experience, just like hair tie their fingers into place.
Okay. And what if they have smallish fingers that you have to go around maybe too many times so it's cutting off circulation?
We talk about like a ping pong ball or tennis ball in the hand. It's like maybe like they'll put onto the strap to be held,
Okay.
but so that the hand shape is consistent. And same thing with this hand, putting like a thick Sharpie to keep it round without limiting mobility.
Not a bad idea. Other ideas?
Instead of switching the base with like German bow.
German bow hold could not be a bad idea. Other ideas? Instead of modifying something for the student themselves, could we modify the equipment in some way?
Maybe you could like possibly do the pool noodle or something on the back of the neck to make it thicker. Same idea with the belt, just add something to bulk it up.
And again, if we're just straight up not buying anything, you could go to the gym teacher and be like, hey, if you have a table tennis program or like tennis or golf or anything like that at your school for PE or for recreational sports, or not recreational, extracurricular sports, do you have any like objects that I can have and just give them to the shop teacher? What about the art teacher? Could they do anything in this situation?
They can put like bricks on. I've seen with like paintbrushes, like putting bricks on them to make it thicker.
Yeah, they make little rubber grips that you can put over pencils. You can put those also over a lot of bows. You can even take like modeling clay, have the art teacher help you out and make something that clips over the bow and helps the students hold that. Again, holds into the hand, things like that. All right, let's move on to the next one. Here is the student that is blind. Jesse,
I said like show them the hand signs for
how do
something.
you show them?
Like by feel.
Okay.
Like showing them with your hands and like having them feel it. Stuff like that.
Good idea.
That's really common in blind deaf ASL. So doing the Kerwin hand signs with the blind deaf technique. Or like we said, if you have access to some sort of braille printer, either at the school or at like a local library, that's another way.
Certainly possible, yeah. Other ideas?
We're thinking about being a bit more exclusive on the call and response. So using it first, so it's all auditory based.
Okay. Not a bad idea. And that is, like teaching by rote. Also a good technique. Rachel?
To teach whole steps and half steps through solfege, if you had like some sort of keyboard that they could have and physically feel tactilely.
And again, buzzword for that is manipulative. And so little things that you can manipulate. What about having what?
Can I say what my thought?
Yeah, go ahead.
And did any of you consider what level of blindness they were?
Yes.
What'd you come up with?
Well, we said if they're not like completely blind, you could have like print out the solfege or have it digitally so it's like very close for them to see if they're not completely blind.
Well, and kind of like you were saying with digitally, one of the blind students that I knew, they were not completely blind. They could see just out of their periphery, and so they would have an iPad where they would just zoom crazy in onto things, and then they'd be able to see some of those things. So that is one option. What about having, one of the other choir members be like their buddy and help them figure out these things tactilely? Or again, like you were saying, cut out that entirely for that student. Even though it may help, there are other techniques that may help even more to have them find success in the classroom. Number 3, just for time's sake.
So put the tube on a stand and then have them play with.
And where do you get the tuba stand?
We can jerry rig it with like maybe a percussion stand, or we can use like a slide.
some models of tuba is able to reach around with like a left-handed playing instead.
Not a bad idea at all.
So if you have like an upright piston, you can see if they're large enough to wrap around. Or if you're personally like mechanically inclined, you can look into like unsoldering and just flipping the lead pipe.
Absolutely.
Talk about alternate fingerings as well.
Nice. Yeah. Okay, Rachel.
Maybe keeping the student on a 3-valve tuba instead of going to 4-valve so that they can just use what they have.
Now let's go ahead and move on to the fourth one. I've been hearing so much from the middle of the room. I want to hear from the outside. Haley.
They make special little earplugs. They're called loop earplugs. They don't completely turn out the sound. You can hear a little bit. We talked about getting those, recommending those to the parents. However, the school definitely is not going to have them, so coming up before we could get the loop earplugs.
Yeah, so what did you come up with before you could get those?
My school had the little like stupid orange ones that you could use. They don't do much, but it's something.
There's something, yeah.
So if
People
there's,
from this side of it. Oh, go ahead, Meg.
there's a special ed instructor or something, they might have headphones that you use.
Yes.
Everything
This
okay.
side. Everything they said? Anyone in the middle who has something different than that, or additional?
Just like personally own a pair or two of over the years, you can go to 99% of hardware stores or like Bass Pro Shops and they have those that are rated to like block out firearms. So that's good about that band.
If you can't get a pair of headphones from a special ed teacher, you might be able to get it from a computer lab that won't be as noise canceling, but will be more beneficial than nothing.
Yeah, I think
You can like using like those sort of headphones, you can help with like having it through like a device that uses like white noise. So it's like makes it so that they're just like that's all they're hearing.
Yeah.
Instead of just loud.
Yeah, you guys have hit on all of the different things that I was thinking about, so nice job. Valve extensions, unsoldering, resoldering the lead pipe, using a 3-valve tuba, working with a SPED coordinator, using maybe just softer instruments and videos, adapting your lesson and curriculum for that, it can be beneficial for all the students. Instead of having bucket drum day, maybe you're doing it just on the carpet or something like that. Oh, Hannah.
Oh, I was around our elbow screen, so class would be able to
Alright, go ahead and write down any questions you have for the guest, like either over the break or just as he's talking. Any questions you have, go ahead and do those later. You have until 6 p.m. Caleb, go ahead.
59.
Who is the guest and what do they do?
It is Dr. Tiger Robeson. He's from the University of Wyoming, which is where I did my undergrad. He specializes in elementary general music and teaching elementary general music teachers, but he has a background in spec technology as well. So,
Quick question for you all, slash quick thing before you take your 4-minute break. One, not in this moment, but at some point, whenever you feel so inclined, you don't have to do this, but we would love some feedback on how we are doing as instructors, what you feel that you are getting from this course, and what we are missing the mark on, just for our own reference. It's not a grade, but it'd be very helpful if you guys have some ideas for improving, or things that you're like, no, if you don't do this for future iterations of this class, we're gonna come back and beat you up. We'd like to know those things. And then 2, we did sit down this past Friday. We are making some changes to the back half of the syllabus in terms of the things that we might be covering week to week. We adjusted some things, condensed some things, and we are going to be giving you next week a chance to do a project in class where you guys take over the room and are going to present on some things. We haven't figured out all the details with that just yet, so I don't want to make you stress out. It will be very easy for you to accomplish amongst your other work, but the last 2 weeks will be student presentations. So we're changing some things around because of that. And if you have thoughts on something that you feel would be beneficial, we're still in the planning stages of that project. So if you have ideas, let us know.
And just to clarify, you're not presenting next week.
Yeah, we're going to tell you what it is, and you're presenting weeks like 14, 15.
Right,
Last
you
2
got
weeks is-
like 2.5 minutes. Not if you have.
or it might be easier, you just so like if they have questions, they can raise their hands and then we can call. You did text them today, right? I think that would be your.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if I have. Let's see if I can just find
No, it's just, I don't know if anymore, it's,
Hello, can you hear me?
It's so quiet.
Go ahead and say something again.
It's a little more.
There, is that awesome? There we go.
Hey, all right. Marcus!
Hello. Good to see
It's
you.
good to,
That's awesome.
yeah, great to see you. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Excellent, thanks.
I'm gonna just turn you to see these folks.
Hi, folks.
All of our EMAP students, effective education practices.
Hey, all right.
We did make this. And so just for the sake of having this be a little more well, hopefully at least, a little bit well designed. Can you see him? Yeah, you can. A little more well designed. I'll go ahead and just facilitate. So if they have questions, I'll go ahead and raise hands. So.
Yeah, sure thing. Well, yeah, thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm really grateful to be here. Let's see. All right, here's one for you. Have you folks covered learners with special needs in music or?
Yeah, and so we did last week. We had a gentleman come in and talk about just general special education, and then this first part of the class we talked about some music specific things.
Okay, cool. Nice. So, okay, great. Let's see. I'm gonna try to share screen. Let's see if it allows me. I think it allows me. Let's try that. All right. Hey, is everyone seeing my stuff?
Yep. And before we get started, would you mind just giving a brief introduction of yourself?
Oh, sure. Hey, folks. So, yeah, my name is Tiger, and Tiger Roberson. Let's see. I have 10 years experience in the public schools in Connecticut, and now I've been doing the higher ed thing for 7 years now, or actually 8 years. And yeah, I got to teach one very promising Marcus Bravo not too long ago, so that was pretty cool. But yeah, I taught general music 3-year-olds all the way to grade 6. I did some strings as well, so 4th through 6th grade strings. And yeah, I feel very just honored to have lived that life. I got bitten by the higher ed bug, so I wanted to kind of enact change, and I figured no one was going to listen to me unless I had some alphabet soup after my name. So I decided to go ahead and do that. And but yeah, but now I get to talk to future teachers, and life is good. So. But yeah, thanks so much. I'm happy to go further into stuff if you want. But I figured I don't know. I'll send this along if you haven't seen this already. But kind of like as far as terminology and things like that. Like for example, I know Marcus and I certainly have an impairment, which is we both wear glasses, right? And so, but as far as I'm aware, Marcus and I don't have a disability. So there's just, when we get into, terminology and seeing, how to fight for the best for our students, words matter and such, but you can read on your own time. Yeah, I think, let's see, anything, well, actually, am I allowed to ask them questions? This is Marcus's show, so.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, like, what's the big deal with an IEP? Like, why should you really pay attention to an IEP? And like, if you're working in a school, you have 500 students, you know, in your band, orchestra, choir, or general music. Why should you really pay attention or like volunteer to be a part of the IEP meeting? Sorry, I can't see you guys too well, so.
Being part of it allows you to fully understand a student, and you may not have specialized training, so the IEP is going to be a very helpful key to you and your relationship with that student.
Were you able to
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was able to hear that. Yeah, absolutely, I know that, for sure. How about another one? Besides like the relationship piece, which I appreciate. Because you can probably get that with the 504 too, right? But like as far as the IEP, like why is that such a big deal?
Understanding students' needs will allow them to participate in music classes, which can sometimes be their only outlet to be creative if they struggle in other subjects.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% buy that as well. Here's the big one, like when push comes to shove, yeah? An IEP is a legally binding document. It's a legally binding agreement, yeah? And so if you can go in there and make the case that, in order to provide the student with like a free, reasonable education, I'm gonna need this equipment and that equipment, and I'm gonna need to see the student for regular music classes, not some like isolated thing, you know. So if, you know, once that's like in the IEP, that's enshrined in federal law, right, and federal funding. So it's like a really, really big deal to, even if it's like, you know, the last thing on the Friday and like the least thing you want to do, you know, is to show up to like, you know, 6 or 7 of these things. Please do consider, and you might have to be like pleasantly aggressive about, you know, getting yourself into the IEP meetings because it's just so worth it. Yeah. So some of the cooler things I get to show you today, you know, they're not cheap, right? But there is funding for it, especially if it's in the IEP. Make sense? Coolio, right? Let's see. Oh, if you hear any noise, that's my 8-year-old daughter playing restaurant above me, so I apologize for that. All right, cool. So there's this stuff. People forget too, like gifted and talented. You know, that's also like students with special needs, right? And so it's not always this like deficit-based thing. It can also be like a, you know, something that a lot of people yearn for and such, right? Hey, have you folks talked about universal design at all? I can kind of give like a brief 30-second.
There's very briefly, we mentioned it last week, but if you have further thoughts on it, please expand.
Yeah, happy to do it. So, I mean, here's my takeaway from universal design, right? Like, in music ed, you want to definitely look up Mara Culp. She's great with that. Her name is spelled CULP. She's at Eastman and just an excellent human being. I get to be partners with her on a couple of projects, but not her UDL stuff. Also, Karen Salvador, who's just like, you know, this warrior in the best possible way. She's out of Michigan State. So, but yeah, so they have the goods for sure. My takeaway was this, like, out of, you know, after going to like so many professional developments, where it's like, hey, how to reach students with special needs, you know? Like, some of the same things came about. It was like, okay, multi-sensory, you know, like, is there stuff you can do before this? Are you hitting, you know, different modalities, etc.? And after coming out of that, I'm always thinking like, well, isn't that just good teaching? Like, isn't, you know, is it structured enough for like students with special needs to be able to like contribute and everything? Like, man, like, isn't that just good teaching, right? And so, boom, universal design, or UDL, design for learning, you know, kind of just all those things, right? Where it's just, like when I think of UDL, I think of this tagline, which is like, a good general surrounds the enemy, and like, it can't help but submit, right? Like a bad general, does the Braveheart thing, right? Where they try one way to attack and just hope for the best, right? So, for this, it's just, yeah, so that's my best UDL stuff. Okay, so before we get to the really, like, cool looking stuff, there is some kind of like older technology that is still fine, right? And it still works. Like, if you need to, like, if you put everything on YouTube, which, seems to be like like a really helpful teaching tool and everything, like, you can go onto, like, settings, go onto, like, playback speed, you can put it on like 0.75, and without messing with the pitch, it'll go slower, which is really, really nice. Or, there's different apps. I'm such a cheapskate that I usually, like, try to get free versions of apps and such, but, like, I'm using Slowdowner, or, it seems like Google really has their stuff together, with, like, extensions as far as, like, putting things in different keys. I think one's called Transcribe. It's really helpful stuff. All right, so, there's that. And then also, like, as digital as we like to get, there's still really, really good, just, manipulatives out there, right? And so, like, this idea of, like, in your craft store, like, you'll have, I don't know if you can see my cursor or not, but I'm moving it like really cool. Where there's like these felt reinforcements, you put those over holes in a recorder, or like put those like different felt colors on, like, let's see, the keys of a clarinet, right? You put that same stuff up on notation, it's really, it's helpful, and you don't have to do much. Or like Finale or Sibelius or whatever notation software, like putting stuff in different colors can really help some kids, So while it doesn't like light the world on fire, like some of the stuff I'll show you today, it really does get to be pretty cool. All right, so this is not my area as a general music person, but again, this is Mara helping me find all these things. If you are really serious about like band instruments and orchestra instruments, like there are ways to make this happen, right? And it's really heartening to see, like, basically there's like this community of parents, particularly a lot of dads, who like just become like inventors just to be advocates for their kids. And it's really quite cool to see. So, for example, if going like this with your hands is going to be an issue, it's just specialists that make these kind of things, like vertical head joint, and little things that we don't think about, right? So like if your neck muscles are not formed the same way as your classmates, like a simple neck strap can really do it, right? Or holding up, as we'll see in the next slide, right? Like holding up a brass instrument, it takes some endurance, right? And so stuff that we don't think about. Anyway, this whole presentation is yours. As soon as we hang up. But yeah, on the brass side of things, right? This is cool. Kelly Mouthpieces. Again, I'm not on the payroll for any of these people. Just like I'm not getting paid for any of this. But they're clear, right? And so it's so cool that you can like see, like you can see the embouchure, and all that kind of fun stuff. Again, as a string player, in turns elementary general person, not exactly my expertise, but it's all kind of helpful stuff. And I know people don't like the sound of the P-bone. They're like, oh, isn't that like a toy, or it doesn't have a real brass sound or whatever. But for some kids, it's the difference between being able to play trombone at all, or playing a P-bone. So, it's all about like your goals, and hopefully your goals are to include as many students as possible, right? I will say I have seen some pretty bad actors. The band and orchestra world, where they just kind of nudge, students with special needs out because they're concerned about how they're going to score at festival and all this other, like, some really bad behavior. And so I hope it goes without saying, like, don't do that. Like, you're paid to teach 100% of the kids, and so everyone has a right to participate, right? Anyway, so there's that. Strings, hooray! So this is my sort of my my past life to do this. I don't know. Again, it's such a weird thing, right? Like I don't know if you can see my hands like this, but like to go like this, like thanks a lot, some Italian guy 500 years ago for like cursing everybody to do this for centuries, really, or millennia. It's really kind of an unnatural thing. But in my experience, I have taught a bunch of cellists with special needs because it's kind of a natural instrument. It requires you to go like this, right? When I'm not dealing with any respiratory things. And so it's really kind of cool to see like these cello things, vocal things. It's pretty fun. Sure, keyboard. You guys can read for yourselves, but maybe explore this at a less busy time. The one that comes to mind for me, I guess you don't have. Where's it? Perkin. Yeah, okay, so there's like mallets. There's all sorts of special mallets. Again, I'm not on their payroll, but if you go to, if you would write down something like westmusic.com, and you go to like adaptive gear, or you go to mallets, or whatever, for any kind of hand formation, including no hands, there are mallets to make your students feel comfortable. It's really, really cool. And what I like about West Music is, again, not on their payroll, but you call like a number and you get a human being, and you're like, hi, here's my budget. It needs to last this long. Please help me. So yeah, that's kind of fun. Stuff that we do normally, like I don't know if you're required to sing in choruses, and if so, if you're required to have this kind of stuff, but like this is really handy. If you shake and tremor, like having a strap there is crazy helpful. Notation, yeah. So I have my own biases about notation, and like there's a difference between music education and notation education. If you're sitting in this room, you're probably really good at notation education, and there's like a pretty good chance that you're good at music education too, like improvising and things like that. But I just see way too many people. I certainly grew up with way too many people where it's like, it's like, no, this is notation education. Like there's no like, being a good musician means playing the right note at the right time, and that's that. But if you are like dedicated, I think some of this stuff has come up before. There are ways to make notation like a little better, if that's the hill that you're going to die on, right? There's many more products out there, and then stuff that we don't think about, right? Like so. Isn't that the most fun slide? So keep going. Okay, this one I do feel obligated to say this because I've seen this happen with administrators who were, I don't think they were mean-spirited, but they were just ignorant. Where, like let's say you have to put on a concert, right? And you say, hey, I need to make sure that my students with special needs are, is like ADA compliant and stuff. I have seen administrators say like, oh, well that's great. That's going to come out of your music budget. And that's the N to the O, no. Not the music budget at all. It's got to be either out of facilities, like the district-wide special ed budget has things to make sure, hopefully they're on their game, and and all buildings are like ADA 504 compliant already. But I have seen some bad actors there. So just be on your toes as far as like making sure everyone can get there. Like, what if you had Isak Froman, at your concert, and be able to defend yourself, to go to your union person, or in Wyoming we have like this fake union kind of thing. But yeah, ask for help if you need it.
We do have a quick question.
So
Yeah, opinion.
So if they take away from the music budget, what do you do?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, get everything in writing, right? So like, start with an email, you know, and say like, dear Jane or John, Q administrator, you know, I was disappointed to see, you know, a ADA compliant, you know, ramp come out of my music budget. I think a more appropriate, you know, thing would be to have this come out of facilities budget or district-wide special ed budget. Please let me know your thoughts. You know, and then that might fix it, because especially if you're using, you know, if you're using kind of the buzzwords, and people see the message, be like, oh, all right, we messed up. You know, they might fix it right there, right? If not, that's when there's power in numbers, right? So that's when, like, even if you're not in a union state, like you can get people who look into this for you. Like you're probably paying dues, like a couple $100 a month, a couple $100 a year, I'm sorry. To say like, hey, I have an issue, like my whole budget is wiped out for this thing. I don't think that's fair. And then that person usually knows what to do, you know. I haven't seen it rise to where the fact that, you know, they've had to like make a case at the school board or something like that. It's usually been like kind of some ignorant administrator pulling that, and then the person sticks up for themselves, and it's like problem solved. Yeah, makes sense. Okay, cool. Yeah, good question. You know, let me know if I can do anything. A little out of date. This is Wyoming specific, but yeah, let's get into the assistive technology stuff. All right. Hey, all my stand-up comedy stuff is coming on the side. That's funny. Okay, let's do this. All right, 2 minutes of your life well spent. In your teacher brain, I'm going to check sound for a second. All right, let me know if you hear some weird music that goes like this. Okay, cool. How are the levels? Is that blasting your ears off? Okay, cool. All right, so in teacher brain, be thinking about not only like, hey, that's cool, and look at the cat, getting a picture and stuff, but be thinking about how this could best fit students with special needs. Okay, 2 minutes of your life well spent. I'll play it twice, but I'll cut off the sales pitch at the end. Okay, here it is.
The sound is kind of cut out for us. It's making sound.
All right, sometimes it happens when I have headphones. About this.
Yeah.
Okay.
A little bit. Sort of.
Hi, I'm Jay. And I'm Eric. We're graduate students at MIT Media Lab. We have a dream that everyone is an inventor. So we created Makey Makey to let you invent just by alligator clipping. Alligator clips stuff like bananas to your Makey Makey. When you touch the banana, your computer just thinks you're touching the keyboard. The front has arrow keys, spacebar, and mouse left click. When you're ready for more, flip the Makey Makey over and you've got more keyboard keys and support for the mouse. You can even use the board like an Arduino when you are ready. No programming, no breadboarding. You don't even have to install software. Just plug it in USB.
Order your Makey Makey today and start changing how the world works.
Cool, huh? Alright, so here's the thing. I don't know if you guys are bored to death by that, or if that's like mind-blowingly awesome, or somewhere in between. So I guess, have you guys seen Makey Makey before? And or is this like revolutionary? A little bit? Okay, cool. So some of you guys have seen this. Alright, cool. So I guess like real quick, you know, how, like, why is this for sale? Well, first of all, how much do you think this costs? Just because I'm curious.
$5.
Say it loud.
15, 20.
I was gonna guess $55.
Wow. Okay, maybe you guys are positive marketing majors or something, because yeah, it's $50, like on the money. So good work. What I like is that, you know, it is these two dudes from MIT, you know, who, I mean, they could have charged a lot more, they could have patented a lot more, but they didn't, which is great. So here's my question to you. Just, you know, quickly, like, how do you think this could help students with special needs in, let's say, I don't know, a band setting?
You can do a makeshift MIDI. With percussion, you can have like, if they can't hold a mallet, like all they have to do is like touch an object and it's a cymbal crash.
Yeah, exactly. Right, so, you know, you download this free, you know, Makey Makey app, and there's more sophisticated ones than the keyboard, but keyboard is all they need, right? And if someone's hand is formed like this, right, where it's really gonna be an issue, you can take the Makey Makey, make it sound, you know, and take it to like, you know, a placemat setting, or like a dot from gym class, right? And they touch that, and suddenly we can contribute, right? And so I really like Makey Makey because it's not too hard, and you know, it's $50, and yeah, it's just, I don't know, it opens doors up wide, right?
Let you know we got about 15 minutes before we gotta move on to questions.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so how about a few more? All right, Soundbeam. I don't know if any of you are British, but I have a healthy distrust of the British. This guy is British. The reason I have a healthy distrust of British is because I lost my 8th grade grandfather in the Revolutionary War. Yeah, he caught a musket ball, you know, straight to the chest there. So 1776, never forget. You know what I'm saying? You know? Yeah, don't trust those guys at all. Anyway, try not to hold that against this gentleman right here.
Do you see where I get it from?
Hi, I'm Tim and this is Soundbeam 5. What does it actually do? It uses these movement sensors, and anywhere you break the beam, it will trigger a sound like this. But it's a bit cleverer than that, because it also constantly measures which way you're moving and how fast you're going, and it maps that to whatever the musical sounds you've chosen to use. Bit like an invisible keyboard. I also use additional sensors and these wire switches to add different parts to the piece. So I'm going to get my drums going. Back to the horn solo. try something a bit more ambient. It's clear already that this is an incredibly accessible way into making music for people of all ages and abilities. If you want to make it a bit more challenging, you can also use it to play tunes.
What? Did you guys not know about that? No. Yeah. That's been a thing for a long time.
40 minutes, we have 9 minutes, okay.
But you don't have to use it for just music. There's a big library of sound effects recorded into the machine, which you can avail yourself of, which makes it great for any kind of drama, storytelling, or multi-sensory project.
Imagine blowing a 13 colony lead. You know what I'm saying? Wow, I'm glad that cool. But so take a look, right? Like this is so you know that community of parents and such and like teachers that I told you about. Here's some like real life things. I'm actually putting the time lapse thing. That's really helpful. I promise I will make good use of the time.
Well, and
All right.
I was just going to say super fast.
Sure.
In between questioning and the presentation itself, we'll do just a super get off of Zoom and get back on the Zoom since it's running out of time.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I had to do it. Okay, so this Batten's disease, I don't know if you know anything about it, it is not fun or forgiving at all. But this person can make music, which is super cool. So 57 seconds of your life, well done. Sorry, just a pause. So this this beam, so everything is done with the mouse there. Cool. But yeah, I mean, she's clearly like listening and like contributing, right? This is another cool one.
Time's very good at this. He's going to play not one beam, but two beams. Okay, you ready?
So yeah, let's see. And then, what else do we want to show? Oh, there's one more, the Skoog. So Makey Makey, and then, you know, Skoog is probably like the next level up, which I'll about to show you. And then Soundbeam, again, if you can get the budget for it, which, if you attend the IAP meetings, is doable. So let's check out this Skoog. I have a little bit of problem with it because, like, you can adjust the sensitivity, which is great, but like the default settings are a little bit tricky, where it's like it's so sensitive that it's like maddening to get it worked out. But once you do get it worked out, like they're indestructible. So, which is cool. Anyways, this is definitely designed to make you buy stuff, so take that with a grain of salt. But it's a good explanation of what it is.
And then use the Skoog software to start making music in seconds. Thanks to the clever things at Skoog, there's lots of instruments to choose from, and they're dynamic and expressive, and you just simply have to touch the Skoog to play them. The Skoog is soft and squeezy, tactile, and you have a different note on each side. The sensitivity can be customized to suit a whole range of abilities and styles. For example, this is Kieran. He has profound and multiple learning difficulties, and he's also completely blind. Kieran has chosen a guitar sample, and using the presets, his teacher has been able to set up the scoop so that he can improvise along with the backing track in creative musical play. He's clearly listening and engaged, and explores how to make different sounds on the scoop by touching it in different places and in different ways. Now, the Scoop software is really simple and easy to use, and supports.
I should make another British joke here, but no, I'll try to show some mercy. That'll be good. Cool. So yeah, I think. Hey, Marcus, can we do the? Let's get off of Zoom for a second and then come right back.
Yep, let's go ahead and do that.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, see you momentarily. Oh, there goes again.
I'm alright.
After 14 years, Scoop doesn't work anymore.
Doesn't exist right now.
I fellow hater of the British.
Now you guys know why I hate the British so much. You didn't know I hated the British?
I don't think I did.
Really? I told you guys about this in Street Methods.
I also didn't retain the from Wyoming. So.
That's a good point, yeah.
Okay, so
There's a
there's
lot
a
of things
Scoop
to forget
2.0, which is software. It's $200.
Hey.
Hello again.
So yeah, sorry, I was just thinking about colonialism and a wet paper bag in water and how that's your national thing and stuff.
I think it's fake.
That's really messed up, you know. But yeah, hey, so cool. I think that's kind of like the meat of sort of the fun stuff that's out there. Trying to think of anything else that would be helpful. I'm blown away. Like it's like the best part of humanity by seeing like how people come together to support students to make music, right? So I don't know if you guys know about SRIGS. It was the Special Research Interest Group, right? But if you go ahead and Google, or hopefully if you're a AFTRA member, Special Research Interest Group, and then put in something like students with special needs, etc. They have like the latest and greatest, right, of stuff that just keeps coming out, which is really great. And then I guess the last thing, before I open up to questions and such is, whenever possible, like try to use people first language, right? And so you'll see this with a bunch of different protected groups, but it's not like, oh, my Downs kids, like my Down syndrome kids, it's my students who happen to have Down syndrome, right? Or it's not my special needs kids, it's my students with special needs, just because, while some people really like celebrate, their membership in different groups or celebrate like, even a disability or anything like that, it's just like, it doesn't define you as a person, like hook, line, and sinker, right? It might be a big part of your identity, but not. So anyway, it's, while it's easier and certainly faster, to say like, oh yeah, special needs kids, or, kind of the most respectful thing to do is be like, oh no, the students with special needs. Does that make sense? Seems like splitting hairs, but like, that was definitely pounded into our head by like some of these really great students with special needs researchers and such. And just wanted to pass that along. But yeah, thanks so much for having me. Are there any questions, anything I can do to augment your education besides a couple more British jokes?
Thank you for being here. And yeah, we do have a couple of questions. Rachel, you want to?
Do you have any experience with Nuvo instruments in their applications in classrooms?
What instruments? I'm sorry.
The Nuvo, like the little plastic clarinet.
Yeah. No, like as a general music person, I've been doing, I kind of have like my tried and true stuff, but I have heard it comes down to like the accessibility versus quality thing, right? So like, a lot of people like moan and groan about like, oh well, it doesn't, it doesn't blend right with the rest of the ensemble, et cetera, et cetera. And I get that, but my answer to that is like, what are you actually here to do? There's a difference, I said there's a difference between notation education and music education. There's also a difference between music education and competition education. Like, I think for some people, directors included, like if it wasn't music, it would be something else. They're just like addicted to the competition, and it really doesn't have to be that way, right? So like, I don't know, I mean, here's a little antidote, right? Like, when I see students doing a senior recital, in their music ed, I'm always like, hey, this is the last day that it's gonna be all about you, until like, your wedding day, I guess, right? Like it's really about the kids, right? And what's in the best interest of the kids, And so anyway, that's kind of what I proselytize. And yeah, if it sounds a little weird with blends, I don't know, it's so far down on my list as far as like opening the doors to the kids. But that's a very long answer to your perfectly reasonable question.
How do you go about finding the funding for things like the sound beam and making it easy?
Yeah, for sure. So as soon as you bring in like this is what's like the Students with Disabilities Act, and like all of that is like enshrined in federal law, right? And so it's good to be slick with that funding, but there's also just people who know that so much better, right? So like go to like in your school, if it's an elementary school, like the occupational therapist, who's there to like teach life skills, they're usually very slick with that. There's stuff in the district budget, for any sort of accessibility issues. So if you frame it like that, and especially if you get it into the IEP, like it should be taken care of at the district. However, if you want to do other stuff like, generally, like if you're by a university, which, in Ohio, there's like 1 million universities, right? There's all sorts of like checkout libraries and stuff too, right? So, and let me tell you as a professor, if someone from the public schools comes up to me and says like, hey, I'm really interested in doing what's right by this kid. I've been looking at this, but it's like just not within my budget. Like those people will go to bat for you. And also like when you do that though, like offer them something in reciprocity, right? So either, the way like academics are judged on their jobs, right? Like it could be something for their tenure file as far as like, on letterhead, a real big thanks. Or if it's like go ahead, like let's open my classroom up to research or whatever like that, that's another good question to put on the SHRIG, like there's usually like threaded discussions, and then lastly, like we haven't even gotten to the like charitable or like do-gooders of the world, right? So like I got $2,000 to buy like a spoon from a local Rotary, project. Like the Rotary's, I actually joined the club and I brought down the average age of the group by like 40 years. But all those do-gooders in Wyoming, we have like the L. Logan Foundation, whose mission is to like serve children, and so there's usually like some namesake company like that, nonprofit like that. And then the last one is like if you're in Ohio, Google something like Ohio State Arts, Alliance or State Arts Group or something like that. That's federal money funded, kind of funnels through state organizations. Wyoming has one, and I apply every year. And yeah, they don't ask for a lot in return. They ask that you like recognize them at whatever concert, and a few other strings. But yeah, as soon as you have a good idea, and like you want to do right by a kid, like tell everyone about it. And the money seems to find its way, you know.
Thank you. Thank you. Other
Yeah,
questions?
yeah.
Limited to what he talked about.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be necessarily what you talk about. It can be about other ideas, other technologies, fears, things that you're worried about in your own teaching.
Yeah, let's see. All right, so what year are you folks, generally speaking? Like,
The majority of the room is sophomores.
Yeah, they're basically all sophomores.
yeah, okay.
We are all sophomores.
I know.
Okay.
I know.
Right, so, yeah, hey, listen, I mean, you know, it's a vulnerable time, right? Do you guys have sophomore barriers coming up? We have to like,
Yeah.
They have like the junior one, junior review.
yeah, for sure. Okay, so, yeah, I mean, you know, easier said than done, but, you know, I know it can be a miserable existence, right? But, know that you're going into, you know, like, I don't know, what I think is a really rewarding thing, right? Like, when I, you know, finally had kids of my own, you know, a daughter of my own, she's 8 years old now. Like, before I got started down that path, like, I really felt like I had a good perspective on, like, humanity and, you know, human development, like, in general, just because I saw, like, kid after kid after kid, you know? And yeah, I wouldn't trade that for anything. Like, I wouldn't trade my public school experience, you know, for anything. And so, yeah, just know that, like, you know, what's on the other side of things, I'm not saying it's easy to be a teacher all the time, especially in the current climate and such, but just know that, like, you know, like the amount of cuteness that you'll get from kids and respect that you get from kids when they grow up and they like say like, oh man, like that one thing you said that one day, like, you know, changed my life, you know, like that stuff, you know, that stuff keeps you young, you know, and so, yeah, I'm 90 years old. I don't know if you knew that, but you know, that's the idea.
Dr. Robeson, could you possibly touch on, you mentioned a lot of technology that we can incorporate into the classroom. Is there any strategies or like teaching practices that you recommend or things that they could do that doesn't kind of run into that financial barrier?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's tough because like I have trouble giving out generalities when everything's like a case by case basis, right? But you know, there's some things like kind of like the Suzuki triangle, right? Of like parent, teacher, and child, right? Like try to tap into that. You know, like if it's an e-thread or whatever, you know, to have like, you know, try to use like student preferred music, you know, or you know, just have like a quick meeting to like, okay, you know, at the end of, you know, this amount of time that I have to do like, you know, what are some of the real goals, you know? And amazingly, a lot of the, you know, I know there's a lot of tech and stuff, but amazingly sometimes it's like, you know, the kid or usually the parent of the kid just wanting like having goals that you don't even really think about, right? So like, for example, I ran an elementary school choir. It was like 200 kids plus me and like a couple of one-on-one para folks, right? And you know, I had like a kid who would just scream like kind of a lot, you know. And the kids were used to it and everything, but like it was really hard to run a choir, right? So you know, I went to mom and said like, okay, here's the deal. Like this is what's happening in choir. I'm 100% dedicated to teaching like 100% of the kids, you know. But you know, can you tell me what you would like to do? You know, what you would like me to do, especially. And it was just like the easiest solution in the world, where like it's like, oh no, he really just wants to be like surrounded by that, you know, and he doesn't even have to like participate except for like this one song which he keeps singing around the house, you know. It's like, all right, well, does that sound fair with you? And it's like, yeah, absolutely. And so, anyway, all of this is to say, like, you know, case by case basis, and and you don't have to go it alone, right? So like, you know, if you have an ideal situation in your head of like, all right, I'm gonna write out this part, you know, like the melody comes to every group, and I think you can handle it, you know, on like, you know, this instrument or like a simplified version or something like that, you know, and you get in touch with a special ed teacher and parent, there's almost always something that can work out, you know. The tech makes it a lot easier, but, you know, like you don't have to go it alone, you know.
Thank you.
I hope that answers your question. It's not like the most satisfying answer, but, you know, you put minds together and it almost always works out, so.
I think we might have time for one more if anybody has.
Yeah, we have time for one more question if anyone has
Are there any British kids here? Did I like? I don't want to have to fill out a Title IX report for this.
No, you had good anti-British sense, yes.
anything. Good anti-British sense.
Okay, just because, you know, honestly, like, have you ever heard of anything good happening out of English boarding school? No. No one ever comes out of an English boarding school. It's like, hey, I'm like, isn't that great?
Down the thread.
Dr. Robeson, could you make sure to share the YouTube videos that you were playing? Just because we had some trouble with some audio stuff, so I wanted to put that on our Blackboard. And then would it be possible that you could also share your contact information in case they walk out of here and then have questions later?
Yeah, 100%. So, you know, Google the guy named Tiger, and, you know, don't pay attention to that golf guy who ruined my life just by saying, I'm typing in the chat. But yeah, absolutely. I'll, so Marcus, I'll send it to you as soon as we hang up. And, yeah, I mean, I still have time in my schedule to, like, I carve out at least 40 minutes a week to, like, just answer questions about anything. I like meeting people in general, so, yeah, please let me know. It sure beats, like, doing stats and such that I do in other aspects of my work, so.
Well, thank you so much. We've got to end here, so thank you. Hey, next week we're back, same bat time, same bat place. Make sure that you are getting those observation midterm stuff done, where you are talking to us. If you have 5 minutes to speak to send us
His email.
and nicely, we'll put it on Blackboard soon, as well as all of the resources that he'll send us. If you have 5 minutes to send us a nicely worded email of things that are going well, things that we can improve, it'd be a huge help. Don't stress it too much. No assignment this week other than get your midterms done. Thank you.
Have a good day. And it doesn't have to be super nice.